concern. To an ordinary person, 10 meters of water is an insurmountable chasm. But for our protagonist, it seems it's just another Tuesday. He deftly takes 4 long spears from the soldiers beside him and secures them to his back with practiced ease. Then, with a sudden, sharp command to his horse, he charges directly toward the city gate. The court watches in utter disbelief. The Empress and her ministers stare, wondering if he has finally lost his mind. Is he actually planning to surrender alone? They see it as a golden opportunity. In a sudden panic, the ministers begin screaming for the archers to open fire. The Empress herself doesn't hesitate, shouting that whoever kills Zhao Qi will be rewarded with the highest titles and immense wealth. She offers 100,000 gold pieces for his head. Naturally, this is all the motivation the archers need. Their eyes burn with sudden greed as they lock onto their target, pulling their heavy bows to the breaking point. Suddenly, thousands of arrows fly through the air like a dense, dark cloud. But Zhao Qi doesn't flinch. He simply looks on with disdain. He raises his Fangtian halberd with one hand, moving it so quickly it leaves a trail of afterimages. The arrows are either shattered to dust or easily swatted aside. Even a rain of arrows this dense proves utterly useless against a man of his caliber, which is a bit embarrassing for the archers, really. This display leaves thousands of archers staring in stunned silence. Having neutralized the threat, Zhao Qi doesn't waste a single second. While the crowd is still paralyzed by shock, he reaches the edge of the moat. He reaches back for one of the spears he brought along and hurls it with staggering force. The air itself seems to scream with a sonic boom as the spear flies from his hand. Then comes the second, the third, and the fourth. Each one is thrown with the same terrifying precision. 7 spears in total streak through the air in rapid succession. A heartbeat later, the precarious drawbridge finally gives in to the pull of gravity. Suddenly, a clear path to the city gate opens up before us. Without hesitation, he spurs his horse forward like an arrow shot from a bow. Upon reaching the gate, he swings his halberd with a fury that could level mountains. Amidst the deafening, bone-shaking roar, the massive doors begin to splinter and tear. Only a moment passes before the gate, supposedly as strong as iron, finally collapses in a thunderous heap of rubble. Zhao Qi then bellows the command. The gate is open, and it's time for his men to move. The soldiers of the Zhao family army, who had been waiting for this exact moment, surge forward. Meanwhile, the Empress and her court are left completely speechless. It takes a few moments before the desperate screams of the commanders reach the ears of the defenders. They shout for their men to kill the traitor, promising titles and wealth by royal decree. They are desperate for anyone to step forward. They are told they must hold the gate at all costs. But let's be honest, most of these soldiers have no desire to commit suicide today. A few hot-headed souls manage to find their courage and charge from all sides. Zhao Qi simply gives his weapon a casual, almost bored flick. In an instant, the air is filled with the sound of whistling wind and the grim reality of battle. Seeing this, the rest of the soldiers feel their resolve crumble instantly. They choose life over loyalty, dropping their weapons and falling to their knees in surrender. Some raise their hands high. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Zhao Gui, who once thought he held the world in his hands, along with the other officials, are all absolutely paralyzed with fear. Like a flock of startled birds, they scramble to escape the impending chaos. Originally, they thought they were safe. Even the noble Empress of Great Feng seems to have been forgotten by the panicked crowd in this desperate moment of life and death. She is accidentally knocked to the ground, her once revered robes ruthlessly trampled by those rushing past, a far cry from her usual dignity. While no one spares a thought for her, Zhao Qi has been watching his old acquaintances since before the gate fell. He spurs his horse forward. Within moments, he appears before them, halberd in hand. To the officials, he looks like a terrifying god of war descended to earth. The sight of him leaves the court officials trembling with such primal fear that a few even lose control of their bladders. Standing at the very front is Zhao Gui, still wearing his prestigious Qilin robes. Zhao Qi lets out a mocking scoff. It's a bit late for a misunderstanding now. As he speaks, he tightens his grip on his weapon. The Fangtian halberd flashes with a cold light, and in an instant, Zhao Gui's head is severed. The headless body collapses onto the frozen ground. This gruesome sight sends the remaining officials crashing to their knees with a level of synchronization that is truly remarkable. While kneeling, they don't forget to shout at the top of their lungs to defend themselves to the general. They cry out that Zhao Gui was a treacherous villain who deserved to die 10,000 deaths for his crimes. They plead for mercy, claiming they had no connection to the man they were just serving. It is a matter of life and death. Faced with their own mortality, these ministers are acting like Oscar winners. If Zhao Qi didn't know them, he might be fooled. Unfortunately for them, their performance is a waste of time. He raises his blood-stained halberd once again. It is then that the disheveled Empress, Lu Ruashi, finds her voice and demands he stop, asking if he truly intends to rebel. Her voice is thick with indignation. Zhao Qi, however, simply stares at the cold, beautiful woman and answers with total honesty. He confirms that yes, he is indeed rebelling. He even offers a mock congratulation to Lu Ruashi for becoming the dynasty's final ruler. At those words, the Empress's face turns deathly pale, and she stumbles backward in sheer disbelief. She never imagined he would be so blunt, or that he wouldn't even bother to hide his intentions. If she had only known that it would end like this, she never would have made those choices. Empress Lu Ruashi's heart is in total turmoil. After a long moment, the suffocating tension finally begins to settle. Lu Ruashi glares at Zhao Qi, claiming her trust was merely a test. She accuses him of open rebellion, daring him to kill her now so the common people can see his true, treacherous face. As she speaks, she closes her eyes. The Empress knows the game is over, and her only remaining hope is to provoke him into giving her a quick death, sparing her from any further humiliation or torture. Unfortunately for her, Zhao Qi finds her weak insults almost cute compared to the internet trolls he faced in his past life. In the blink of an eye, his Fangtian halberd moves like a storm, leaving nothing but lethal afterimages in its wake. Screams erupt as dozens of high officials fall by his hand. To be honest, they never stood a chance at resisting. Hearing the cries, Lu Ruashi's body trembles uncontrollably. We must remember, she has only been on the throne for a few years. Barely 20 years old, she is far from the fearless ruler she pretends to be. Suddenly, a large hand wraps firmly around her waist. Feeling this, Lu Ruashi opens her eyes to a sight that leaves her heart racing with fear. The ground is a mess of wreckage, with the sun reflecting off the blood and the torn remnants of official robes. Her mind goes blank for a moment before a surge of fury takes over. She begins to scream at him in a rage. She calls Zhao Qi a bastard, demanding to know if he realizes he just slaughtered the empire's most vital administrators. Even if he intends to start a new dynasty, she asks how he expects to govern the country without them. She warns of total chaos, but Zhao Qi only responds to her hysterical questioning with a playful, mocking smirk. Aside from her lack of common sense, he decides this silly empress isn't actually that bad, though she needs an education. He tells her she overestimates these useless men, claiming that governing a nation doesn't actually require their presence. In fact, he suggests a dog could do their jobs just as well. This dismissive remark only makes Lu Ruashi more furious. She calls him a brute, unable to believe his arrogance. Zhao Qi, however, simply shrugs off her indignation. He gives her slender waist a playful squeeze and tells her to just wait and see what he can do. With an air of absolute authority, the lowly rebel, Zhao Qi grips the gritting teeth of Empress Lu Ruashi. He strides boldly into the magnificent palace, flanked by the formidable soldiers of the Zhao family army who stand like an unbreakable iron wall, ensuring the entire palace is under his absolute control as he takes a seat on the dragon throne. He leans his halberd against the side and, with a mocking half-smile, tells Lu Ruashi that she surely wouldn't want anything to happen to the other members of the great Feng royal family. After a heavy silence, the Empress's expression shifts through a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. She is torn between shame and fury, while Zhao Qi watches her with an amused, almost triumphant glint in his eyes. Just as she prepares to step forward, a group of officials is herded into the hall like frightened ducks under the watchful eyes of the soldiers. Zhao Qi tells her to simply stand to the side and play the part of a pretty mascot, a command that, strangely enough, brings her a small sense of relief. As her tension eases slightly, the crowd of officials pours into the hall, but their breath catches the moment they look toward the imperial throne. A wave of shock washes over them. Though they had heard rumors of Zhao Qi's arrival, they never imagined seeing him. At this moment, sitting upon the dragon throne, while their former empress stands beside him as submissive as a servant. This sight makes his true ambitions crystal clear. To be honest, any talk of him merely being the king of Qin was just a ruse to blind the public, and as the realization sinks in, the official's face is pale. One official steps forward, pointing a finger at the man on the throne and shouting, "Zhao Qi, how dare you disregard all sense of status and majesty by sitting there. Step down immediately before you bring further shame upon your family." Several other officials quickly join the chorus, telling him that the throne is not something a man of his station should ever dare to covet. They call him a mere commoner, mocking his audacity to reach for the highest seat in the land. It is simple and easy to see that in the eyes of these noble-born elites, Zhao Qi's humble origins make him nothing more than a speck of dust. Their deep-seated contempt is palpable, as they have spent their entire lives looking down on anyone who wasn't born into a prominent family. Even now, when they are effectively the fish on his chopping block, their arrogance drives them to act with a suicidal level of defiance. Perhaps in the hearts of these elites, people are born into rigid classes, but Zhao Qi knows that the world belongs to everyone. He believes that all should be born equal and that merit should rule the land. With a casual wave of his hand, we see a flash of his ruthless nature. He orders his men to drag these idiots out and execute them on the spot. A brain, he notes, is a useful thing, and he dryly hopes they might actually grow one in their next life. Immediately, the Zhao family soldiers obey without a moment's hesitation. Seeing this, the officials are visibly shaken, and several of them nervously step forward to protest. They argue that Lord Lu only misspoke, and that his crime hardly warrants a death sentence. To be honest, they are quite desperate. They claim the dynasty has always been known for its tolerance, and they ask if Zhao Qi's arbitrary actions truly align with the laws of heaven. It is a bold move, certainly. Zhao Qi listens and nods slowly, his expression suggesting he is giving their words some very serious thought. "You have a point," he says, and for a brief second, the officials relax, their eyes gleaming with a sense of smug, misplaced triumph. But before they can even celebrate their victory, he calmly gives another order. Drag these idiots down and execute them as well. It is a terrifying display of power. He wonders aloud how they could be so blind to the reality of the situation they are in. He asks them, with a bluntness that makes everyone's skin crawl, if he is truly not worthy of being addressed as Your Majesty. The officials are left stunned and speechless. When one finally gasps that he is rebelling, Zhao Qi simply asks if it wasn't already obvious. He dismisses them as useless for taking so long to realize the truth and orders them to be taken away. More fools follow, meeting the exact same fate before they can even finish their sentences. Throughout it all, Zhao Qi remains as calm as if he were simply sitting down for a quiet dinner. In just a few moments, he has sentenced nearly a fifth of the court to death. In the chaos, some officials scream curses, while others face the end with a quiet, dignified resolve. And then, of course, there are those who collapse in total terror, begging for a mercy that Zhao Qi has no intention of granting. He watches them with a cold and detached gaze, looking out over the hall as the guards begin to clear away the consequences of such unfortunate arrogance. "Your Majesty, congratulations," they cry, celebrating the sudden and violent end of the ignorant Great Feng dynasty. They hail his ascension to the throne as the start of a glorious new era, bowing low before their new master. It is destiny, they claim, insisting that only Zhao Qi can lead the common people toward a brand new life. We see a faint, contemptuous smile touch his lips. He finds their sudden change of heart quite sensible. For now, he decides to spare their lives. Nearby, the Empress watches her world crumble, her heart heavy with fury. She never imagined these opportunists would turn so quickly, praising Zhao Qi while dragging her name through the mud. Deep down, she wants to strike them down herself, but the sheer power of the man on the throne keeps her frozen. With a casual wave, Zhao Qi dismisses the court and orders the noble clans to wait outside the hall. Then, his gaze turns toward the Empress, Lu Ruashi. It seems he is ready for a different kind of confrontation. While the setting isn't quite right for a full celebration, he decides it is time to collect a little interest on his victory. He pulls her toward him. Lu Ruashi leans against a pillar, trembling as she tries to regain some shred of composure. She glares at him with a mixture of resentment and helplessness, forced to endure this public humiliation. Zhao Qi ignores her glare entirely, sitting upon the dragon throne with a wicked, self-satisfied grin. Seeing that smirk, Lu Ruashi feels her anger flare up like a wildfire, her face flushing a deep, vivid red. She grinds her teeth in silence, her pride wounded far more than her body. She tells herself that his tyrannical nature will eventually bring about his own ruin. Hearing her muffled protest, he turns. He catches her looking like a cornered tigress, a sharp contrast to her usual cold and distant demeanor. This sudden spark of spirit only amuses him. He stands up, tosses Luruashi over his shoulder, and begins to walk. He heads toward the private chambers, determined to teach this once noble woman a very personal lesson in hierarchy. She demands to know what he thinks he's doing, especially since it is still broad daylight. Not that it stops him. Even in broad daylight, he makes it clear that as emperor, he can do exactly as he pleases. Meanwhile, across the great Feng dynasty's vast territories, the winds of change begin to howl and dark undercurrents surge among the many border ministers and prominent nobles. They are stunned to hear the news that Zhao Qi has led his army into the capital. To them, the news of his rebellion sounds like a complete fairy tale, utterly impossible, or so they thought. Normally, they would expect a man to die heroically for the crown, but after a brief silence, these lords become quite excited, realizing this chaos serves their own interests perfectly. Whether they plan to grab power or steal the world for themselves, the timing is, to be honest, ideal. With Zhao Qi at the very front bearing all the infamy, these ambitious men begin to issue orders to gather their troops and quell the rebellion. They boast of rising like a great bird on the wind, soaring 90,000 miles. They believe their time has come to enter the capital. They look toward Luo. She, convinced that since she cannot hold her throne securely, it is now rightfully up for grabs. While some conspirators are anxious, others are delighted, busily spreading rumors of Zhao Qi's rebellion to stir the pot and bury his name under a mountain of blame. But the reports from spies leave many people absolutely stunned. We see their confusion as they learn that 150,000 guards were crushed by a spear stroke breaking a bridge. One man taking a city alone and declaring himself emperor? It sounds like a joke. They call it audacious, insane, even, that a man of such low birth would dare to reach for the heavens. In their eyes, this arrogant upstart must be eliminated immediately. Clearly, to these people, Zhao Qi was never their equal. Compared to those from noble lineages or thousand-year families, a man who originated from the very bottom is seen as a dangerous outsider. Not long after, lords from every corner of the land begin marching their massive armies straight toward the capital. For several days, the generals of the Zhao army and the local gentry plans have remained exactly as they were, showing no signs of change. He knows this isn't something he can simply fix. After all, when an avalanche occurs, no single snowflake is innocent. In the past, these people lived in luxury, enjoying an extravagant lifestyle that ordinary folk couldn't even imagine in a lifetime. Everything they possessed was built upon the blood and tears of the common people. Since they enjoyed the spoils now, it is time for them to pay it all back. If we pity these elites, then who will pity the truly impoverished people at the bottom who struggle just to survive? We see the imperial prison is now overflowing with countless nobles who were once high and mighty, now reduced to prisoners. Inside the palace, Zhao Qi sits boldly on the throne, listening to his general's reports. They inform him that the families of the rebel Zhao Gui and 16 others have been executed. However, some whisper that such excessive slaughter offends the heavens. Hearing this, the former empress, Luruashi, cannot help but interject. She warns him that such bloodshed truly defies divine will, and that in a few days, he will surely be overthrown. The generals standing below remain silent at her words. Although Luruashi is a fallen ruler, she has also become Zhao Qi's close companion. Even if she speaks treason, it is not for these men to rebuke her. Everything depends on his mood. But he doesn't get angry. To him, the idea of offending the heavens is simply laughable. He sees these high-sounding words as nothing more than a facade to deceive the masses. He realizes they aren't truly advising him, but are actually terrified that they might face a similar fate one day. They are merely trying to secure a way out. Unfortunately for them, such petty tricks won't work on him. He speaks, and though his presence is imposing, as he sweeps his gaze across the room, he coldly addresses them once again. Since they enjoyed their former power, they must accept the painful price that comes with it. He will not accept any compromises, nor any of their so-called advice. He orders them all to be imprisoned, the guilty to be executed, and the rest to be condemned to hard labor. The former empress bites her lip. She grits her teeth, calling him a bastard and promising he'll regret this. Just then, a messenger rushes into the hall so frantically his helmet nearly falls off. He reports that the former king has raised an army of 200,000 and is marching straight for the capital. Before he can even finish his sentence, several more nobles rush in with dire news. King Zeng has raised 300,000, and King Qin is already approaching the city gates. From the southwest, Huatian brings 150,000, while the northern Yu general brings another 200,000. Combined, the numbers are staggering. The total force exceeds 1 million men. Seeing this, Luruashi lets out a cold laugh. She tells him the whole world has rebelled. What can he possibly do now? She claims the common people have no voice and are merely being used as pawns by the great noble families. To her, his end is inevitable. We see that Zhao Qi, however, isn't worried by these reports. He simply asks, so what? He believes he represents the true heavens. He argues that these nobles don't represent the world. The world belongs to the people. To him, a million-man army is just an opportunity to settle everything in one go. He orders the entire army to prepare for a battle that will decide the fate of the empire. A moment later, his generals look on with a strange intensity. Their expressions are filled with a fanatical loyalty, never once doubting whether his bold words can actually be realized. To be honest, their faith is almost frightening. Meanwhile, the former Empress Luruashi watches with pure contempt. She seems to have given up on trying to reason with a man who refuses to see reality. But in truth, this is exactly the moment Zhao Qi has been waiting for. 10 days pass in a flash, and the rebel armies finally converge outside the capital. These various factions all arrive with their own hidden agendas, and as a result, they begin to naturally keep each other in check. It's a delicate balance of power that prevents any one group from acting too quickly. While waiting for the conflict to erupt, Zhao Qi spends his idle days with Luruashi. Despite her obvious resentment, he continues to assert his dominance over her. On the other side of the city, the officials and noble families who haven't been purged yet are busy hatching their own secret plots. During this tense period, Zhao Qi ignores all traditional customs of appeasing the elite during a regime change. Instead, he continues his ruthless crackdown. He keeps the noble classes under the constant threat of the executioner's blade. By now, these once proud elites are reduced to merely begging for their lives. Those who still hope to overthrow him see this as their last chance to strike back against a ruler they consider a monster. These remaining forces forces use every secret method at their disposal to establish contact with the rebel armies outside. The web of betrayal is growing quietly. As night falls, it seems there is a silent understanding among the various factions as they almost simultaneously launch their long-plotted schemes. Kill them, seize the gates, remove the pretender, they cry. However, this was merely a ragtag force made of household guards and loyalists thrown together. The moment they approach the city gates, they fall into a sudden ambush, a trap they never saw coming. It is a calculated disaster. We've been played, they scream, realizing too late that their secret plan was known all along. Thousands of arrows suddenly whistle through the air. Before many can even react, they are pinned to the ground by the dense, lethal rain, becoming a truly gruesome sight, living pincushions. It is a chilling scene, where the sudden volley feels like a judgment from the heavens themselves. This ragtag army pays a heavy price for its ambition. As the bodies pile up, elite squads of garrison, soldiers, and noble clansmen emerge from every corner to surround the survivors. High on the wall, we see Zhao Qi watching with a cold, steady gaze. He observes the carnage below without a single flicker of emotion, looking very much like a man who has everything under his absolute control. While these remnants make a desperate final stand, he is simply fishing, using the opportunity to wipe out these unstable elements, so his rule is seen as even more legitimate. He believes all conflict stems from the unequal distribution of resources, and while that can't be permanently erased, he knows that eliminating a specific class can delay the trouble. To be honest, he sees this as a mere sharpening of the blade. The true moment of reckoning hasn't arrived just yet. From a short distance away, a chilling thought echoes. One can always solve a problem by removing the people who create it. Outside the city, the rebel coalition watches this unfold from the shadows. Seeing no room for clever tricks, they realize they must settle this with cold steel. 4 days later, at the break of dawn, the various rebel factions converge outside the gates, forming a massive, dark tide of soldiers that seems to stretch on forever. It is an awe-inspiring, if terrifying, sight. The leaders of these many factions gather like a constellation of power, meeting face to face. Surrounded by their elite guards, they wear carefully practiced, hollow smiles while engaging in intricate negotiations. Every word is a hidden dagger in a silent war of ambition. To them, this first day is merely a stage for trading threats. In the distance, their subordinates begin to shout their demands in a thunderous unison. We hear the rebels acting out, essentially hurling insults at Zhao Qi for his rebellion and claiming they've come to deliver justice. They wrap themselves in a cloak of hypocrisy, hoping to dampen the Zhao army's morale and weaken their resolve before the coming slaughter. It is all preparation for the life and death struggle ahead. Surrounding the heralds are several fierce warriors representing the various rebel factions. Traitor, villain, do you dare to fight? They scream, stepping forward one by one to challenge the defenders to a duel. The goal, of course, is to shake the army's spirit. However, for those who have already witnessed Zhao Qi's inhuman power while following him through the Great Jin dynasty, these taunts have absolutely no effect. To the Zhao soldiers, the idiots shouting outside don't understand the first thing about military morale or the hearts of the people. High upon the city walls, we see Zhao Qi watching the scene with a wild, fierce smile as he reaches out his hand. His crescent halberd gleams coldly in the sunlight. In the next moment, he asks his men if they have the courage to follow their emperor out of the city to face the enemy. As he speaks, the very air seems to vibrate with tension. The response begins as a low rumble, eventually erupting into a roar that ignites the entire capital like a wildfire. Every one of the 500,000 Zhao soldiers is swept up in this passion, their hearts beating in perfect unison. Their weapons flash as they raise a deafening, wild laugh toward the heavens, a sound that makes the million-man army outside turn pale with sudden, visible terror. Whether it is the eloquent advisors or the warriors who were just boasting about their bravery, even the high-ranking rebel leaders feel their confidence begin to crumble in this moment. Their faces twist in shock, shaken to the core by the tidal wave of fury crashing against them from the walls. Deep down, they start to weigh the risks against the rewards, their resolve swaying like a scale out of balance. A sense of gnawing anxiety takes hold, weaving a complex web of doubt among the coalition forces as the atmosphere shifts. Then, the massive city gates swing open with a thunderous boom. A moment later, a figure clad in black armor appears in the morning light, mounted on a powerful warhorse with his crescent halberd shimmering with a lethal chill. Then, leading the charge like the first ray of dawn, Zhao Qi rushes out of the city with unstoppable momentum. The elite generals under his command follow closely behind, each a veteran of 100 battles with unyielding fire in their eyes. Their fighting spirit is a vow to follow him to the death, their armor and weapons gleaming in the sun with a chilling intent. Facing an enemy force that outnumbers them several times over, he doesn't choose to hide behind the safety of the city walls. Instead, he takes the initiative to strike, knowing that on a narrow path, it is the brave who prevail. The rebels watch this and laugh, mocking him loudly. To them, a boor is simply a boor, especially one who falls for such a simple provocation. They find it hilarious that a man who calls himself emperor still charges ahead like a common general. To be honest, they think he's completely brainless for leading the charge himself. They expected a much greater challenge. It seems they overestimated this peasant before they arrived, but for them, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. If they can kill him here, the Zhao army will collapse instantly. After all, how could a million-man coalition possibly lose? In their eyes, Zhao Qi is simply walking into his own grave. It seems there is no longer any need for a complex, coordinated attack. They can settle things with this brainless rebel right now. Meanwhile, at the front of the rebel lines, the civil advisors who were busy reciting their prepared insults begin to scramble toward the rear in a panicked rush. They never expected him to ignore the script. The war of words had only just begun, and yet he chose violence immediately. A brute, they mutter, truly a brute. However, the fierce warriors from the various factions feel something quite different. Their faces are twisted with pure ecstasy. Their ultimate target is right in front of them, and if they can take his head, the glory and wealth they've dreamed of will be theirs. Fame and fortune are suddenly within arm's reach. They swarm forward like hornets, howling as they raise their weapons to meet him. One shouts for the false emperor to die, claiming to be General Liu Ziyuan of the Southwest. But a few heartbeats later, as the two forces finally collide, the crescent halberd sweeps through the air with a thunderous crack. The enemy generals are left deafened and dazed as the world blurs. And just like that, there was no after. Over a dozen powerful generals were instantly cut down, leaving only 2 survivors. These lucky stragglers had missed the first wave of the attack, but as they witnessed this inhuman display, their faces turned, deathly pale in an instant. They were terrified out of their wits and tried to flee, but it was far too late for that. As Zhao Qi passed them, he casually cut them down as well. To be honest, the whole thing looked as effortless as taking a sip of water. He didn't even spare those generals a second glance. From the very beginning, his true targets were the leaders and high-ranking officials. A million-man army sounds imposing, but we see that for him, taking a commander's head is as easy as reaching into a bag. After spending centuries hiding like a coward in his previous life, he found this battle to be an incredibly satisfying release. Meanwhile, the faction leaders watching from a distance were absolutely horrified, their eyes bulging at the sight of his power. Among the crowd, the shock was palpable as they realized their overwhelming